When Karen thought she could attack Judy's children on live television, she had no idea what was coming. What happened next became the most savage comeback in television history, leaving an entire studio audience gasping and America talking for weeks. This wasn't just any ordinary TV spat. This was the moment when a mother's protective instincts collided with years of pent-up frustration, creating an explosion that would be replayed millions of times across social media. Karen had built her reputation on being untouchable, the queen of cruel comebacks who could destroy anyone with her razor-sharp tongue. She had humiliated politicians, celebrities, and ordinary people alike, always walking away victorious. But on this particular day, she picked the wrong target. Judy sat quietly in that studio chair, a single mother who had worked 3 jobs to provide for her 2 children, never asking for sympathy, never seeking the spotlight. She had agreed to appear on this show to share her story of resilience, hoping to inspire other struggling parents. What she didn't expect was for Karen to use her children as ammunition for entertainment. The moment Karen opened her mouth and spoke those vicious words about Judy's kids, something shifted in the air. The studio went dead silent. Even the camera operators stopped moving. Because what happened next wasn't just a comeback, it was a masterclass in justice served ice cold. Before we dive into this incredible story, smash that like button if you love seeing bullies get what they deserve. Now let me tell you exactly how this all began, and why this single moment changed everything for both women forever. To understand the magnitude of what happened that day, you need to know who these 2 women really were. Karen Mitchell had built an empire on being television's most ruthless personality. For over a decade, she had hosted Real Talk with Karen, a daytime show where she prided herself on asking the questions no one else dared to ask. Her catchphrase, "I say what everyone's thinking," had made her millions of fans who tuned in daily to watch her tear apart her guests with surgical precision. Karen didn't just interview people, she dissected them. Politicians trembled before appearing on her show. Celebrities' publicists warned them to stay away. But Karen's ratings were through the roof because America had become addicted to watching her destroy people on live television. She lived in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, drove a custom Bentley, and wore designer outfits that cost more than most people's monthly salaries. Karen had never been married, had no children, and often boasted that she didn't need anyone because she was perfectly complete on her own. Her social media was filled with photos of exotic vacations, expensive meals, and red carpet events. To the world, Karen Mitchell was untouchable success personified. Then there was Judy Rodriguez, a 34-year-old single mother from Queens who worked as a night shift nurse, a weekend house cleaner, and drove for a rideshare company whenever she could squeeze in extra hours. Judy's days started at 5 a.m. and ended well past midnight, all so she could provide for her 8-year-old daughter Maria and 6-year-old son Diego. Her ex-husband had disappeared when Diego was just 2, leaving behind nothing but unpaid bills and broken promises. Judy never complained, never asked for handouts, and never made excuses. She simply worked harder. When Judy's story of juggling 3 jobs while putting herself through nursing school went viral on social media, Karen's producers saw an opportunity. They reached out to Judy, promising a platform to inspire other struggling parents and even hinting at potential financial assistance from sponsors. What they didn't tell Judy was that Karen had been looking for her next target, someone whose struggles she could exploit for maximum dramatic effect. The producers had done their homework, digging deep into Judy's life, her finances, her children's school records, everything they thought Karen could use as weapons. The show started innocently enough. Karen flashed her trademark smile as the cameras rolled, introducing Judy as an inspiring single mother who's overcome incredible odds. For the first 10 minutes, everything seemed normal. Judy shared her story about juggling 3 jobs while attending nursing school, her voice steady but humble. The audience nodded approvingly, some wiping away tears as she described studying for exams in her car between shifts while her children slept in the back seat. But seasoned viewers of Real Talk Live knew Karen's patterns. She always started sweet before delivering her trademark verbal assault, and today there were warning signs everywhere. Karen's compliments felt hollow, delivered with a smile that never reached her eyes. She kept glancing at her notes, tapping her pen impatiently against the desk. When Judy talked about her children's resilience, Karen's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The other co-hosts, Maria and James, exchanged worried glances, sensing the shift in energy. The first red flag came when Karen interrupted Judy mid-sentence. "That's a beautiful story, Judy, really touching," Karen said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "But let's be honest here. Don't you think your children are suffering because of your choices?" The studio audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the inspirational segment they had expected. Judy blinked, caught off guard, but maintained her composure. "My children are thriving, Karen. They're honor roll students who understand the value of hard work. Karen leaned forward like a predator sensing weakness. Honor roll? That's impressive. But tell me, Judy, when was the last time you were actually home for dinner with them? When was the last time you helped with homework instead of rushing off to your next job? The questions came rapid fire, each one designed to chip away at Judy's confidence. The audience began murmuring, some calling out, "That's not fair," and "Leave her alone." Karen ignored them, her eyes locked on Judy with laser focus. Maria tried to intervene. "Karen, maybe we should—" But Karen silenced her with a raised hand. The tension in the studio was now palpable. Camera operators zoomed in closer, sensing they were capturing something explosive. Judy's hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles white, but her voice remained calm. "I'm always there for my children when they need me. Everything I do is for them." That's when Karen's mask completely slipped. Her smile vanished, replaced by a cold sneer. "Everything you do is for them, really?" She shuffled through her notes dramatically, building suspense. The audience fell silent, holding their breath. Even the crew seemed frozen, sensing that whatever came next would be brutal. Karen's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt more menacing than shouting. "Because I have some information here that might surprise you, Judy. And I think America deserves to know the truth about the kind of mother you really are." The studio lights seemed to dim as every eye focused on the two women. Judy's face went pale, but her spine straightened. She had no idea what Karen was about to unleash, but something in her posture suggested she was preparing for war. The audience collectively leaned forward, phones already recording, sensing they were about to witness television history. Karen's fingers drummed against her notes one final time before she looked directly into Judy's eyes, smiled coldly, and prepared to detonate the bomb that would change everything. The studio air grew thick as Karen lifted her notes with theatrical precision, her eyes gleaming with malicious satisfaction. She had done this countless times before, destroying guests with carefully planted information designed for maximum humiliation. But this time felt different. This time she was about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. "Judy," Karen began, her voice sickeningly sweet, "you paint such a beautiful picture of motherhood, but I wonder what your children really think when they come home to an empty house every single day." The audience stirred uneasily, but Karen was just getting started. She leaned back in her chair, savoring the moment like a cat playing with wounded prey. "Because according to my research, little Emma and Marcus spend more time with babysitters than with their own mother." Judy's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. "My children understand that I'm working to build a better future for them. They're proud of me." Her voice was steady, but those watching closely could see her hands trembling slightly. Karen's laugh was cold and calculating. "Proud? Oh, honey, that's precious." She held up a piece of paper, waving it like evidence in a courtroom. "Because I have a report here from Emma's teacher that tells a very different story." The audience gasped audibly. Even the camera crew exchanged uncomfortable glances, sensing this was about to spiral into something ugly. "This teacher says Emma has been falling asleep in class, that she's been acting out, seeking attention." Karen's voice grew louder, more aggressive. "And little Marcus? Well, he told his counselor that Mommy is always too tired to play with him, that she cries in the bathroom when she thinks no one is watching." The studio erupted in shocked murmurs. "That's enough," someone shouted from the audience. But Karen wasn't finished. She was building to her crescendo, the moment that would shatter Judy completely. Karen stood up from her chair, pointing directly at Judy like a prosecutor delivering a final blow. "You want to know what I think, America? I think Emma and Marcus would be better off with a mother who actually has time for them, instead of chasing some fantasy about being a hero." Her voice echoed through the stunned studio. "These children are paying the price for your selfish ambition, and you're too blind to see it." The impact was immediate and devastating. The audience collectively gasped, some standing up in outrage. "Oh my God!" someone screamed. "She did not just say that." Maria covered her mouth in horror while James shook his head in disbelief. Even the usually stoic camera operators looked shocked, though they kept filming, knowing they were capturing something unprecedented. But it was the look on Judy's face that made everyone's blood run cold. For a split second, she looked like she had been physically struck, her eyes wide with disbelief and pain. Then something shifted. Her expression hardened, her back straightened, and a dangerous calm settled over her features. The studio fell into an eerie silence. You could hear a pin drop as everyone waited to see how Judy would respond. Karen stood there smugly, thinking she had delivered the killing blow, completely unaware that she had just awakened. Something far more powerful than she had ever encountered. The Queen of Savage Comebacks had no idea she was about to be dethroned by a mother whose children had just been attacked on live television. And what happened next would make Karen wish she had never opened her mouth. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Judy sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her breathing slow and controlled. Karen remained standing, basking in what she thought was her moment of triumph, completely oblivious to the storm she had just unleashed. The studio audience held their collective breath, phones recording, sensing they were about to witness something extraordinary. Then Judy spoke, her voice so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear her. "Karen," she said, each word measured and deliberate, "you just made the biggest mistake of your life." She slowly rose from her chair, her movements graceful but predatory, like a lioness preparing to strike. The studio lights seemed to focus on her as she stepped closer to Karen's desk. "You want to talk about my children? Let's talk about them." Judy's voice began to rise, but it wasn't anger, it was pure, controlled power. "Emma and Marcus have watched their mother work 16-hour days not because I'm selfish, but because I'm building something their father was too weak to provide." The audience began to murmur in approval. Sensing the tide turning, Judy's eyes locked onto Karen's with laser intensity. "You see, Karen, while you've been sitting in this comfortable studio for 8 years tearing other people down, my children have learned what real strength looks like. They've seen their mother fall down and get back up. They've watched me study until 2 a.m. after working all day because I refused to let them grow up thinking failure was an option." Karen's smug expression began to falter as she realized this wasn't going according to plan. Judy continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "And that teacher's report you're waving around like some kind of weapon. Did you bother to read the full thing? Or just the parts that fit your narrative?" She pulled out her phone with theatrical precision. "Because I have the complete report right here." The studio was completely silent now, every eye focused on Judy as she began to read. "Emma Thompson is one of the most resilient and compassionate students I've ever taught. Despite facing challenges at home, she consistently helps struggling classmates and shows remarkable emotional maturity for her age." Judy's voice cracked slightly with pride, but she pushed forward. "And Marcus? His counselor recommended him for the gifted program because of his advanced problem-solving skills and empathy." The audience began to applaud, but Judy raised her hand, silencing them. She wasn't finished. "You want to know what my children really think about their mother, Karen?" Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more power than any scream. "Last week, Emma wrote a school essay titled My Hero. Want to guess who she wrote about?" Karen's face had gone pale, her hands visibly shaking as she gripped her notes. She tried to interrupt. "Judy, I think we should—" But Judy cut her off with a look that could have frozen fire. "She wrote about me. About how I taught her that a woman doesn't need a man to succeed. That hard work beats privilege every single time, and that sometimes the people who love you most have to make sacrifices so you can have a better life." Judy's voice began to rise again, filled with righteous fury. "And Marcus? He told his entire class that his mommy is a superhero because she can work all day and still have energy to read him bedtime stories." The audience erupted in cheers, but Judy wasn't done delivering her devastating blow. She stepped even closer to Karen, her voice now carrying the full weight of a mother's love and fury. "You built your career destroying people, Karen. You've made millions tearing down others to make yourself feel powerful, but you just attacked the wrong mother's children." Judy's final words rang through the studio like a declaration of war. "My children don't need your pity or your judgments. They have something you'll never understand. A mother who would walk through fire for them, and if you ever speak about my babies again, I'll make sure this industry knows exactly what kind of person you really are." The studio exploded in thunderous applause. People were on their feet cheering, some openly weeping. Karen stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, completely unable to respond. She had been utterly, completely, and publicly destroyed by a woman she thought she could intimidate. If this is giving you chills, hit that subscribe button because we cover the most incredible comebacks on the internet. But this story isn't over yet, because what happened next changed both their lives forever. The moment Judy delivered her devastating comeback, phones across the studio audience were already uploading clips to every social media platform imaginable. Within minutes, Judy Destroys Karen was trending worldwide. The raw footage of Karen's stunned, speechless face became an instant meme, shared millions of times across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. But this wasn't just viral entertainment. This was a cultural moment that struck a nerve with millions of working mothers everywhere. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Celebrities, politicians, and ordinary people flooded social media with support for Judy. Oprah Winfrey tweeted, "When a mother defends her children, she becomes unstoppable. Judy Thompson just showed us what real strength looks like." Ellen DeGeneres shared the clip with the caption, "This is what happens when you mess with a mama bear. Judy, you're my hero." Even tough Hollywood actors were posting emotional responses, with Dwayne Johnson writing, "Real recognize real. This woman just gave a masterclass in grace under fire." But it wasn't just celebrities rallying behind Judy. Working mothers across America saw themselves in her story. Single mothers shared their own struggles in response videos, using Judy's words as inspiration. "If Judy can do it, so can I," became a rallying cry. Within hours, a GoFundMe campaign started by complete strangers had raised over $50,000 for Judy's children's education fund. Local news stations in Ohio were camping outside her house, wanting to interview the woman who had taken down television's most feared host. Meanwhile, Karen's world was crumbling in real time. The show's producers immediately called an emergency meeting as sponsors began pulling their advertisements. Major brands like Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson released statements distancing themselves from Karen's comments. Real Talk Live ratings plummeted as viewers organized boycotts across social media platforms. The show's official Facebook page was flooded with thousands of angry comments demanding Karen's removal. Karen's personal social media accounts became disaster zones. Her Instagram comment section was flooded with crying face emojis and messages like, "Judy ended your career," and "How does it feel to get destroyed by a real woman?" She tried posting a half-hearted apology video, but it only made things worse. The video was immediately ratioed with dislikes, and the comment section became a graveyard of harsh criticism. People weren't just angry about what she said to Judy. They were calling out years of toxic behavior that had finally caught up with her. The network executives were in panic mode. Internal emails leaked showing that Karen's contract renewal had been canceled effective immediately. Her agent dropped her within 48 hours, citing irreconcilable differences and damage to professional reputation. Other television networks made it clear they wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole. Industry insiders whispered that Karen had become radioactive in Hollywood circles. The consequences extended beyond just her career. Karen's personal relationships began deteriorating as friends and colleagues publicly distanced themselves from her. Her own children's school received so much negative attention that she was forced to withdraw them and hire private tutors. Real estate agents confirmed she had quietly put her Beverly Hills mansion on the market, reportedly planning to leave Los Angeles entirely. Within 2 weeks, Real Talk Live announced Karen's permanent replacement and issued a public apology for the incident. The show tried to rebrand itself as more positive and family-friendly, but the damage was done. Ratings never recovered, and the show was ultimately canceled 6 months later. Karen Martinez, who had built an empire on tearing others down, discovered that karma had a way of collecting its debts with interest. Judy's incredible comeback teaches us the most powerful lesson of all: never underestimate a mother defending her children. In that moment, she showed us that real strength doesn't come from tearing others down, but from lifting yourself and your family up against impossible odds. When someone attacks what you love most, you discover reserves of courage you never knew existed. The power of words can build empires or destroy them in seconds. Karen learned this the hard way when her cruel attack backfired spectacularly. She thought she was untouchable, but she forgot that every bully eventually meets their match. Judy proved that authenticity and truth will always triumph over manufactured drama and fake personas. This story reminds us that behind every working parent is a warrior fighting battles others can't see. While Karen was busy performing cruelty for ratings, Judy was quietly building character, resilience, and unshakable love in her children. That's the difference between real power and the illusion of it. Sometimes the smallest person in the room carries the biggest heart, and when that heart is threatened, it becomes an unstoppable force. Judy didn't just defend her children that day. She defended every parent who's ever been judged for doing their best. What would you have said in Judy's position? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more incredible stories like this.